Hello, this here's Smerdley. Ouch. Broadcasting to you from Smerdleyville. Ow. You have to pardon me. Last week I did a lot of physical exertion and work and scrubbing and washing walls and scrubbing the floor on my hands and knees and taking down cobwebs and washing all the walls, and I guess I overdid it, and my rib cage feels like, like somebody been using my ribs for a punching bag. But anyhow, the headlines of the newspaper of a few days ago necessitate that I do an update on an old Smerdley episode about a giant land tortoise that a 19-year-old kid mutilated. Bob's attacker sentenced. Okay, and here's the kid who did it. He's 19 years old. Right here. Yeah. The story seems to have changed since last July when this first happened. The mother of the owner of the turtle seems to embellish things a lot. Here's a demonstrator outside the courtroom. Justice for Bob. She's demonstrating on behalf of the tortoise. She kind of looks like a turtle herself. That's not the mother, that's just a demonstrator. Okay, she kind of looks like a little turtle herself, short, in a shell, defending the rights of a tortoise. Now, the 19-year-old did this all by himself, okay? According to the story last July, which is kind of sick because you can't just say, well, I was with a bunch of guys and we was smoking some joints and drinking some beers and we found this big turtle and one thing kind of led to another and we all got carried away. No, he did it all by himself, and that's not normal, okay? Because a guy like him should be in a psychiatric place, and because you start off with, lizards and tortoises and frogs and shit like that, and you work your way up to birds and dogs and cats and finally up to children and women and people. Anyways, that's my philosophy on it. But the teen got 9 months in the case of the tortured tortoise. 9 months in jail. He was sentenced. He pleaded no contest to a felony charge of intentionally harming an animal, and was sentenced to 270 days in county jail with credit for 156 days already served, and that's it. Oh yeah, plus he's been ordered to pay restitution of $5,479 and to spend 5 years on probation. Before the judge handed down the sentence, the tortoise's owner, Dorothy Sullivan, spoke to the court for about 15 minutes, describing, tearfully at times, how her life has changed dramatically since Mr. Mosqueda entered it. She talked about how in July Mr. Mosqueda took her family pet and tortured it in front of a group of children. Oh, now all of a sudden she says that there's a group of children watching. Well, why didn't the group of children do anything about it, you lying bitch? And then she said he threw it over a 5-foot-high brick wall onto a rocky slope, then asked her for money to get the turtle back. She said the defendant tried to get money from her by telling the turtle was hurt, saying, "He needs you." Now here is the mother of the turtle's owner. Look at her wringing her hands, all worried and shit. Now this is a done deal. The kid's already been charged. He's been taken to court and sentenced. Mrs. Sullivan says she continues getting death threats telling her to drop the charges or that she and her autistic son will be shot in the head and killed. Staring directly at the defendant, who spent the hearing in an enclosure just off the courtroom and speaking to a courtroom filled with supporters of the 42-pound African spurred tortoise, Mrs. Sullivan told her story.
I don't understand why, in front of so many children, you would torture my gentle tortoise. My little boy is so scared. He fears he will be taken and harmed like the tortoise. I don't know how to make my son feel safe in our own home. We gave up everything for our autistic son. I became a speech and occupational therapist determined to get him out of this prison of autism.
Mrs. Sullivan continued, adding that her son, William, 6, spoke for the first time in his life with Bob the tortoise.
Bob never knew anything but kindness until you came along.
She spoke of the medical bills and veterinarian costs that her husband, Bill, incurred, and how the family had to leave a security system installed as a result of the defendant's actions.
He slashed Bob's throat and cut the bottom of all his feet so that every step he'd take would be in pain,
Mrs. Sullivan said, seeming to lose the physical strength to go on talking, and weeping through her words.
The tortoise was held down while he was tortured,
she said. Children in the neighborhood have told her all about it. Throughout Mrs. Sullivan's statements, Judge Clark looked at no one, except for the moment when Prosecutor Wendy McFarlane asked to consider not allowing the defendant to have custody of his dog until he is off probation. The judge asked in a sympathetic tone what would happen to the dog. Judge Clark then wondered aloud if it might wind up in a shelter and possibly be euthanized. At that moment, an unidentified man in the courtroom shouted out an offer to care for the dog. The judge struck back sternly, telling the man to be quiet. In other words, shut up! Turning the whole thing into a big circus, with a hysterical mother. I think this woman's main problem is she's putting fear into her 6-year-old son's heart. Basically, what she's pissed off at is that her son is autistic, and she's had to become an occupational therapist in order to make sure that her son get the proper care. I think she's overabundance of maternal bullshit, and this thing, she's like the Cindy Sheehan. All right, Cindy Sheehan. She's like the Cindy Sheehan of tortoises, land tortoises. That's it. The whole thing has her so much in a tizzy that she can't see anything else. Okay, she can't see anything else. And yes, the guy is mentally disturbed, the 19-year-old, and he should go to a mental facility to be monitored. But she exaggerates the story, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that tortoise did not have its throat slashed, and his feet were not cut. You can tell in the picture. Go back and look if you don't believe it. Anyways, that's an update on the story of the crazy kid who mutilated a tortoise, and how people are making a huge thing out of it and saying that the kid's going to come back and kill the mother by shooting her in the head, and the autistic kid. And that's just a bunch of hysteria and bullshit. I don't know. Anyways, that's news from Smerdleyville, and excuse me while I, oh, my ribs feel like they're all punched up. Oh, they hurt. Oh.